Leo Gonzalez is a candidate for the Bryan School Board District 3, joins us today. Thanks for joining us today.
Good afternoon, Mr. DeLucia. Thank you for having me.
Remind people a little bit about you in case they don't know you. Tell us about Leo.
Yes, sir. My name is Leo Gonzalez. I am from Bryan, graduated from Bryan High in 1989. My parents graduated from SFA in 1967, and I have two kids that are Rudder High School graduates. I am an attorney and real estate broker here in town, been on the board 3 years, and happy to serve and would like to serve another term.
What was the most daunting part of your first term, and how do you think you address that differently now?
The most daunting, hands down, was the difference in finance, school finance versus regular real world finance. I've told the board members this when I ran 3 years ago. I said, simply save your money. If we need to do something, save your money. And when you have enough money saved up, then you simply do whatever projects need to be done. Being on the board for 3 years in the state of school finance, I understand that that's not possible. You cannot save enough money because there's just not enough money in the bucket once we pay all of our teachers and everybody else, our expenses. There's nothing left over to save. So sometimes we do have to go for a bond, which is what we're doing now.
So you're an attorney. There are a lot of attorneys in Austin.
Yes, sir.
Austin has got hurdles and curves, and there's all sorts of challenges that Austin is presenting all public schools. Tell me what that means. What do you think needs to happen in Austin to make your road a little bit easier?
I think they need to at least start by adjusting for inflation. We have not had an increase. We get paid per child. So our daily attendance rate is how our money from the state is calculated. And we did get a raise this year. They floated around $300, $400. I think we asked for $500 or $600. They settled on $55 is what we settled on. But then they moved over some costs that used to be borne by the state. Now they're borne by the school board, or the school district rather. So it turns out to be a $5.87 increase. And we haven't had anything since 2019. So just think of inflation before the pandemic hit everything else. Inflation has gone through the roof, and we're still using 2019 dollars to try to pay that. So you hate to ask for more money. I'm not that, but we are unable to function with the money that we're given now and provide the education and that we would like to do. So they need to loosen the purse, is what I'm trying to say.
Do you individually want to be more in contact with Austin the next session comes around if you're reelected, or do you prefer to be in the position you are as a member of the team?
I think it's important to reach out as well. I got to know Glenn Hagar before he became our chancellor. So it is nice being able to talk to people, because I think it gets convoluted by the time your message gets sent up and back and around. We are a team. We must operate as a team, but I think there's sometimes where a phone call, a personal relationship can go a really long way in conveying a message of what we need, what we could do with a little bit more money, a little bit more funding. And I think a lot of times some of our local representatives aren't aware of the challenges that we're going through. So I think I would like to do a little bit of both, quite frankly.
So as you complete a term on this school board, tell me about how you interact with three things. First, your administration informs you. Tell me about your interaction with teachers, and then tell me your interaction with parents.
That is one of the things I have been that is what I get up on my soapbox. I really believe that teachers, parents, and students need to have a direct access to the board. We have procedures and policies. If you have a grievance, you file it, and you have to go through different steps. It's a tedious project to do that. A project to do that. But I feel if you have a problem, they should be able to talk to us and make us aware of it. I always tell our board members and admin, we cannot do anything if we're not aware of it. If there's a problem that we're not aware of, we can do nothing to fix it. When I ran 3 years ago, I think I discussed with you that we didn't have paper in some of the schools. And so that got taken care of. And when I got on the board, the superintendent and I toured all the schools, and they had plenty of paper. Everything was great. Well, I was at a forum a couple of weeks ago, and one of our local DAs got up and said, "Mr. Gonzalez, my kids don't have paper. The teachers don't have staplers. They can't give homework." And the superintendent, I called her, and she was very upset about that. She said, "We need to figure it out." So no one had expressed that to me, and I wish they had, because we can get little things like that. I say little, but if you can't give homework, it's not a little thing. But I encourage more interaction, and I'm absolutely open, good or bad. If a parent, a student, especially teachers, if they have something that is wrong or something that is great, I want to know about it, and I'm an open door. They are welcome to call me anytime, and I will do what I can to address their issues and concerns.
As one member of this school board, where does the parent fit in when you're discussing curriculum?
Not enough, quite frankly. We have our test scores; those come in. We monitor that, but I don't think we have enough. I would like personally would like more input from the parents. I like more input from our shareholders, as we call them, on everything. So we make the decisions. A lot of what we do is, of course, mandated by the state. We can't really do a whole lot. We can work within what the mandated curriculum is. But I would like for parents to come in and tell us, here's what's working and here's not, because we are able to work within those parameters to change things. I've for a few years, in the last 2 or 3 years now, I have advocated for some kind of life skills class where you teach them to use a checkbook. I have a 20-year-old in Mays Business School, honor kid, everything else, and I had to teach him how to write a check. He had no idea how to write a check. I mean, it's unheard of. And things like that, I would like for them to have some general life skills. He couldn't address an envelope. I mean, he could, if he wanted to send an email, he could send it to the whole town, but did not know how to address an envelope. And obviously, it has nothing to do with intelligence. They just have not been taught these skills as they get kind of phased out. So I would like to get some input from parents. What skills would you like us to teach your kids? And again, there's some things we can do and some things we cannot. But again, more input for me is better.
Of all the things that the last legislature did, they brought in vouchers.
Yes, sir.
Those are new challenges for you. Talk about that.
That is a big challenge, and we're not opposed to competition. We've had this discussion on the board. Ginger Carabine and I have had this discussion quite frequently. We're not opposed to competition. That makes things great, but it needs to be on an equal level. And it seems that what we've seen is, you're getting $10,000, $12,000 vouchers, and these private schools and charter schools don't have to meet the rigorous. We have so many things that we have to follow. We must follow. We have all kinds of requirements that they do not have to, filings and testing. So it's not a fair playing field in order for us to try to compete. And we've got so many other things without having, our allotment's $6,000, I believe, and they're getting 10 to 12 without having all the rigorous requirements that we have. So that is one thing that is the biggest challenge is, competing with that. We haven't really seen that. It's too early yet to tell what's going to happen with it. But it is definitely a concern, and I wish the legislature would take that into consideration. Now that they've gotten vouchers that they wanted, I'm hoping that they'll pay a little bit more attention to public schools again.
Of course, maintaining the good teachers that you have, paying them enough, and then bringing in new teachers with the voucher system, that kind of may be a different prism to look through. But what does Brian need to do to retain those teachers that you want and get new ones?
We have to pay them more. That's the bottom line. We all have families to support. They have student loans to pay. It's extremely important to pay them more. And that's why I always advocate tightening the belt everywhere we can. That has been my mantra since I started. There's always somewhere you can tighten the belt. And, one of the big things that I always harp on is if we have any positions that are redundant. Redundancy does not belong in a business. And, we always say, well, we're not really a business because we're in the business of kids. But we still have expenses and we have income and we have to make the most of it. So I would like to find any kind of redundancies, any excess, and we've done a good job. We've worked really hard with our deficit budget. It would have been a lot more had the district not tightened up and made people work more, kind of not replace people as they retire, as they leave. But that's one thing that I feel very strongly about is we must operate more efficiently.
Well, redundancy is a buzzword, so do you have some specifics that we can understand?
Yes, sir. And this is what I heard when I ran 3 years ago. One of the other candidates told me, I brought up redundancy, and they said, well, you have to understand, we have a certain report, and they named the report, and they said, but we have 3 people that have to review it. We have one that writes it, and then we have to send it to somebody else, and they review it for the district, and then we send it to somebody else, and they review it to send it to the state. And I said, well, that's 3 people reviewing one job. So, that things like that, we don't need multiple people doing a job that one person can do. Now, I can't tell you right now, I've been to the admin building and I've seen, these 3 people sitting there doing nothing. I don't have that kind of evidence, so I would bring it up if I did. But I do know that there are redundancies. In any big corporation, you're going to have redundancies. And so I've been advocating for an audit of our admin to see, for us to know, because no one, our admin would not want to have anybody that's not pulling their weight, and we just may not be aware of it. So we're looking at a study right now that is in process that's going to kind of give us, it's not called an audit per se, but that's what it is. It's kind of an evaluation, and I think that's very important to know where we stand with our employees to make sure that everybody's operating efficiently.
Any idea when you'll see that report?
It's supposed to be in the next few months. I think early part of next year is what I was told last.
Parents we have high achieving students, we have low achieving students. Parents in the middle are trapped and concerned in many school districts as to what is going to be done with that disinterested student, that student who will disrupt the classroom so that child in the middle is not able to get the education they need.
Yes, sir. It is always a concern, and our hands are tied many times with what we can do discipline-wise. We don't want to ever overreact and send a kid to one of our DAEP programs where they're isolated for 6 months and I've seen that happen in other districts. We don't want that to happen. So it's a very tight rope. My kids were in the same position. We had one child, extremely funny in the class, but my kids couldn't study because he was this other gentleman was on a table, and my kids would come back sometimes and say, oh, so-and-so did this and this and this. So it is a huge concern because disruption is not fair to anyone. It's one thing if you hurt your own education, which we do not want, but it's another thing if you're affecting the 20 kids around you. So we have got to find more ways to engage our kids. And this is why we've been pushing our extracurricular, our sports. The more engaged they are, the less trouble they want to get into because they want to play football or soccer or baseball, and the coach is not going to look kindly upon them acting like a clown in class. So that is something that we are addressing, we are working on, and it is always on our mind.
To the extent you can, address the items in the bond issue so folks will know about that.
Yes, sir. So we have three bonds, three propositions. The first one deals with our academics, so we're building new schools, adding gyms. We're adding a gym at Rudder. We're looking at building a brand new collegiate, which is an absolute powerhouse. We're just so proud of that program. And then the second proposition is for our sports. And it covers a new field house and getting artificial turf. We've gotten lots of information back from the coaches, and we've got a wonderful athletic director. And Derek has told us that we missed, I believe it was 29 days of practice that the baseball team did because they couldn't get out on the field. It was wet. So there are necessities that we need to get done. And then the third one is technology. We're going to have a system that all the teachers will have access to immediately, district-wide. And that's important this day and age to be able to get your teacher to whomever she needs to speak immediately. So that's the third package, the third proposition that we have. So I'm in favor of the bonds. We need some help. I am not in favor of wasting money, and that's what I tell people. I get asked all the time, you speak that like you don't want the bond. No, that is not it. I just don't want to waste any money on the bond. And we've got some different people in place now. I think that it will be very helpful. But like I told you a second ago, that's one of the main reasons I want to run again, is that I would like to be there as this money is distributed and to make sure it's done efficiently. And like I tell everybody, if you ask my kids, they'll tell you I'm the biggest penny pincher on the planet, and I will handle this bond money exactly the same way or even more so.
Why are you the best person for this job?
I'm the best person because I have the experience. I've been on it 3 years. There's a huge learning curve. As you asked earlier, the learning curve, you've got acronyms, you've got different, the acronyms are what took forever for me to learn, but and I have to remind them even at this point. I usually blame Joel Bryan and say, hey, can y'all explain that for Joel Bryan? So, but there's a lot to learn. There's a huge learning curve. I am a businessman. I am from Bryan, and the biggest thing is my kids went to Bryan schools, and that to me is important. If you're going to run, I believe your kids should have attended Bryan schools, and so that's what I think sets me apart. Is that mine did. Mine went there. I've got 3 Aggies. And it just really makes you able, once you've been in there, you see what's going on. And I think you get a different perspective that you're not able to get if you have not had kids in the district.
Anything we haven't covered today?
No, sir. I appreciate your time. I would like I said, I really look forward to serving again. And I want to remind everybody that I am always, always open to criticism, praise, just say hello, especially teachers, parents, and students. That's what I'm here for. That's why I do it. I remind everyone that it's a volunteer position. I get asked all the time, well, you get paid, so maybe if you didn't get paid so much, we could afford to hire more teachers. And I said, you know what, you can have all of my income. But that's really important. Like I said, I am Bryan through and through. I love our district, and I know we can take it to great new levels, and I look forward to serving again.
Leo Gonzalez, he is a candidate for Bryan School Board District 3. Thanks for the time.